March is the time to think about feeding our gardens for the year. Now, I don't want to overcomplicate things, but I'm going to share with you the feeds that I use that work for me and things that you might want to think about getting. Now, the number one has to be fish blood and bone powder. You can buy this anywhere. You can get it in Home Bargains, you can get it in B&M, you can buy it in bigger bags off of Amazon, but this is a feed which you will use all the time. It's so affordable, and the great thing about it is it's slow release, which means that it breaks down slowly, feeds the plants over a period of many weeks, so you haven't got to be liquid feeding all the time. And it's just so beneficial to have a box of this. I have already done it, but if you're wanting your clematis to be beautiful in the summer, I always find just adding a handful of this at the base of your clematis plant, forking it in, that gives it a really good feed early on in the season, and it is so beneficial to do that. And you can do this with lots of your perennials that are in the garden if you want. However, if you've been following along and you have mulched your garden, all of that lovely organic matter that we've added to our borders, that is basically going to be the feed for the year. Now, you will find that some people choose to regularly feed their whole garden. I don't do that. I work really hard to make sure that my soil is great and I'm adding organic matter every year. So my soil in my borders should have everything that the plants need to thrive without me having to be regularly feeding. I don't want to be liquid feeding my whole garden every week. Some people do like a Feed It Friday. I'm not here for that. I can't be bothered. I would lose track of when I'd done it. I definitely feed my containers a bit more, but we'll talk about that. But the goal with my borders is that the soil is good. It's got organic matter. I can tell that my plants are thriving. Definitely my clematis and my roses I feed. We're going to talk about roses next. But genuinely speaking, I don't regularly feed the garden. Sometimes in the summer, I will give it a bit of a boost and I will lay down chicken manure pellets, which are really affordable. Literally just sprinkle them around, fork them in a bit. And again, it's another slow release. So often I think that as we're coming into late summer, autumn flowers, sometimes I like to give the border a bit of a boost, but it's really quick and easy to do, but we don't need to be worrying about that yet. So clematis, definitely I feed. I want lots of flowers. And roses. And I haven't actually got the David Austin rose feed with me, but they do a granular feed. You buy it in a pouch, you sprinkle it at the base of the rose, and it is a once a year feed. That's what they recommend doing. And they also recommend mulching every year at the base of the rose. If you're mulching your borders like I do, you already will have done that. But it's just giving that rose all of that organic matter, and the slow release little pellets that come in the pouch just feed the rose for the whole year. Now, I came across this product, Uncle Tom's Rose Tonic. I had seen some accounts on Instagram that had the most amazing, healthy, thriving roses, and they all use this product. It's like a professional rose product. I really don't want to have black spot on the roses. I want them to be the best that they can. So I did buy this. It's not the cheapest. And I will say that the foliage on my roses looked incredible last year. So I don't know if it was because of this or not. I actually only used half the bottle last year, so I didn't do it regularly. It says here, can't remember how often you're meant to do it, but the first one is to be done as soon as your leaves arrive, and the leaves are just starting to come. So I will definitely apply this in March. But yeah, I think it worked, so I'm going to use it. So that is one that I do love. The next one is, this is azalea, camellia and rhododendron feed. Now, I've had this bottle for donkey's years. I'm probably down to about here now. So I do feed my rhododendron a couple of times a year. I don't even know how often you're meant to do it. I think the first one is spring. Feed every 1 to 2 weeks. I do not do that. I probably do it 2 or 3 times a year. I'm not here for feeding all the time. Clearly my rhododendron is very happy. It has amazing foliage. It gives me beautiful flowers. Like, I just do what I can. But that's lasted me years. Then we come on to thinking about feeding container gardens, for example. Now, tulips, spring bulbs, none of that. I don't feed any of that. However, my container garden is quite big and I have shrubs and I have perennials in there that I don't repot. They live in the pot for a really long time. The soil is good. I mulch those perennials in the pots every year so they're getting that organic matter. But I do feed. So not probably until April, sometimes I give things a liquid feed, purely because when I'm watering the pots, it's a really quick and easy way to glug some of this in a watering can and just give it a quick feed. So liquid feeds are not slow release. They need doing regularly. So whether you're tomatoing it or you're seaweeding it, they're going to have to be done regularly. I mean, some people are on a weekly cycle of feeding. Like I said, I just can't be bothered with that. So if I can slow release, it's much better. So bloodfish and bone powder and chicken manure pellets can be a really easy way of feeding your pots, but really young plants can get burnt from chicken manure pellets because they're quite rich. So you really have to make sure that they're forked well into the soil, and actually early on in the season when things are young and fresh, I can't be bothered with that. So I do tend to use just a liquid feed, but probably I do it fortnightly. So when I'm just watering the pots like I normally would, I give a feed. Now with things like bedding plants, things that we've grown, things that we're going to be planting out, they absolutely will thrive more if they are being fed. There is a science that shows you how much better things do when they are fed, and that can be applied to your border. Probably if you regularly fed, things would be much, much better. But it all comes down to your style of gardening, the money that you want to be spending. I absolutely do not want to be spending loads of money feeding stuff in my garden. Like, it looks fine, it thrives, the borders are bursting, I've got loads of flowers, like, that's good enough for me. I'm adding my organic matter, my soil is good, that's good enough for me. I am not going to be doing this regularly. Like I said, a slow release feed is a much better option, but for in pots, because they're in pots, they do need a bit more nutrition, then these can be a quick and easy way of doing it. Then we've obviously got seedlings. So our seedlings are being fed by the compost for up to 6 weeks. But interestingly, I have received a new bag of Silver Grow compost that's specifically for seeds and seedlings. And it actually states on the bag that it only feeds for 3 to 5 weeks, which surprised me. So I don't know quite what has changed in that formula, but perhaps it doesn't feed them for as long. I learned a lot actually at the Garden Press event about wholesalers and how they grow and what they do, and actually they incorporate a feed into the compost mix in the spring when they do all their planting. So bloodfish and bone powder would be a great option for that. So if you're doing any potting on, then definitely think about adding some scoops of the bloodfish and bone powder to your compost mix, and I'm going to be doing that too. Now, seaweed is good for root and foliage. Tomerite or any tomato feed is good for flower and fruit production. So we're not quite at the point of needing the tomato feed. I always would choose a seaweed, but if that's all you've got, then go with that. These can be bought really readily from any high street store. Home Bargains sell these for about £3 a bottle. They should last you for a decent amount of time. Always check the labels, because cheapest isn't always best, in that the cheap Tomerite, one of the ones that I looked at, had actually half the ingredients of a cheaper one. So I did go for this one, but it's always on offer. But you know, any amount of feed that you can do is better than nothing. So don't stress about it. Don't think it's got to cost you loads of money. Just do what you can do. And if you only buy one type of feed, go for bloodfish and bone powder for sure. It's affordable. It's easy to store. You can add it to your watering can and dilute it and use it as a liquid feed. It is a fantastic feed, but definitely March is the time to be thinking about feeding. We need to be feeding our seedlings, and flowering shrubs, it's definitely beneficial for them to be fed. Hydrangeas, you can get specific hydrangea feed. You can obviously get specific camellia, azalea, rhododendron feed. It's definitely just the time to become familiar with the things in your garden that will thrive from being fed. And definitely rose, clematis, there are things which, you know, we're going to get better flowers and a better plant if we feed. So definitely have a look at what you've got in your garden and think about what you need to be ordering.